In this video, I am going to clearly show you the undeniable connection between Jesus, Odin, and Prometheus. But even more interestingly, by the end of the video, I am going to point out how these similarities actually diverge in a way I guarantee you have never heard before, and to be honest, leaves me with more questions than answers. I will be bringing you to the brink of my own understanding of the subject. The first connection among all three is the way they were symbolically put to death. Jesus died on the cross, Odin died on the world tree, and Prometheus is chained to a mountain to die over and over. At face value, these seem like separate forms of torture, but they absolutely are not. The cross, the world tree, and the mountain are all esoterically symbolic of the human body. I want to point out here that this does not go against the idea of a literal crucifixion of Jesus. Symbolic patterns are not just something found in fiction, they are inherent to the very nature of our reality in some strange but consistent way. So, back to the cross. The cross symbolically represents a cube, which is commonly understood to represent the human body. Going by the original iconography of the cross, it esoterically represented the four elements, which again represent physical reality or a physical body. Next, we have Odin being sacrificed to the world tree. Trees, esoterically, just so happen to represent the human body as well. One example of this association is in Kabbalah, where the tree of life represents reality and the human body. The tree of life is also, interestingly, a two-dimensional representation of a four-dimensional cube. There are many symbolic representations of trees equating to bodies throughout mythology and media alike.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arch trees.
Now for Prometheus. Prometheus was chained to a mountain to die over and over each new day. The third esoteric way of depicting the human body is a mountain. I go into much more depth on this in my video titled, Mountains Are Symbols for the Body. But to summarize, the easiest way to see this is to look at the summit of the mountain in religious stories and mythology. The summit is where contact with God is made. The summit is where the Greek gods reside. The summit represents the crown chakra, which again is the top of the skull, and the place where contact with the divine is made if one is able to overcome the temptations of the previous chakras. Another interesting detail is that Jesus was crucified at Golgotha according to the Bible. Golgotha in Aramaic means the place of the skull. Next, let's look at how each of these figures was pierced in the side. In the New Testament, it is stated that Jesus was pierced in his side with a spear. It is not stated specifically where on his side he was pierced, but in esoteric circles, it is strongly believed to have been the liver. Odin, while hanging from the tree, was pierced by a spear as well. Like Jesus, it is not specified where, but common old depictions show the wound on the side in the same way Jesus was said to have been pierced. As for Prometheus, while he was chained to the mountain, he had to endure an eagle tearing through his side to eat his liver every day. So let's assume that all three examples are not just similar, but symbolically describing the same thing. That would mean the eagle tearing out the liver of Prometheus should line up with the spear used to pierce Jesus and the spear used to pierce Odin. Symbolically, the eagle is seen as an agent of divine authority, and the spear is associated with a weapon or ray of divine authority. Esoterically, the liver is associated with life force, vitality, passion, desire, emotions, prophecy, and divine insight. In esoteric readings of Prometheus, the liver is often treated as the seat of vital energy, or the inner fire of life that is repeatedly consumed and renewed. With all that covered, I want to tell you about something my wife was shown in a dream before she knew anything about Jesus. In this dream, there was a festival taking place, and in the center of the festival hall was a statue of Jesus. Jesus was lying on the ground, reaching upward, while a spear was pierced through his side. The people were celebrating the death of Jesus by having orgies, covering themselves in blood, and throwing food at the statue in the festival hall. She was seated at a table in the hall and felt grossed out and disturbed by the things happening around her, but she knew she was not supposed to acknowledge it for fear of trouble. She then went through a door into a corner store style gas station that was connected to the festival hall. Behind the register was a girl who seemed to know something and was watching. It was understood that she was against what was happening as well. A tall Nordic looking man then approached my wife and asked her if this is what she wanted. She answered no. She said she received a kind of download or understanding that this man was part of a resistance against the force these people were aligned with, the same force celebrating the death of Jesus before following him out through a door that led outside. It's a wild story, but at the time she had no idea that Jesus was ever pierced by a spear. She also claimed that the dream was far more vivid and real than a normal dream. I'll be honest, I don't know how else to connect the dream to all of this, but I feel like it's the right thing to include that experience here. Now, for where, in my opinion, it gets really weird. The associations between Jesus, Odin, and Prometheus have always been noted, but the symbolism is not exactly the same. For example, Jesus is said to have sacrificed himself on the cross for our sins. Odin sacrificed himself on the world tree for his own wisdom, and Prometheus was sacrificed on the mountain for bringing fire to humanity. What stands out to me is that Jesus died for bringing wisdom to humanity through his gospel, and Prometheus essentially did the same by bringing the fire to humanity. Fire has always been a symbol for wisdom. What is strange is where the symbolism seems to split. Odin sacrificed himself on the world tree to bring wisdom to himself alone. So this is where I'm left with more questions than answers. I won't pretend to have an answer for this fracturing of an archetype. If I had to guess, I think Jesus, Prometheus, and Odin are all archetypes, but Jesus represents the one who willingly sacrifices himself for the benefit of others. Prometheus had no choice. He did not choose to be sacrificed, and Odin chose sacrifice, but he did it for himself. So, like I said, this is where I'm at personally in my understanding of these figures. Let me know in the comments if there are any other associations you can think of between these three figures, or perhaps another mythological character. And as always, thank you for watching.